Hey everyone, this is Rebecca. Welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're going to be making these Greek yogurt bagels. So this is an everything bagel seasoning bagel, and these are made with Greek yogurt, like I said. Typically bagels are made with a yeast dough or a sourdough, and you let that rise, and then you shape them and you let them rise again, and then you boil them, and then you bake them in the oven. And while those are great, and I've made homemade bagels before, this is just a simpler version. And since they're made with Greek yogurt, they actually have a lot more protein in them, and so it's just quick to put together. It's an easy recipe for kids to do. I like to make a batch of these up when I'm doing a lot of baking, and that we can have for the next week or so. And if I'm not going to eat them within a few days, we'll just stick them in the freezer, and then we can pull them back out. So my son actually made a sandwich out of this for his lunch to take to work today. So he just cut it in half and put some salami and cheese and mayonnaise, and he said he really liked it with the everything bagel seasoning on it because it just gave it something a little bit extra. So we're just going to get started in making these. Just going to get my apron on here so that I don't get flour all over myself because I've got an appointment to go to later on. So these are the 4 basic ingredients you're going to need. I've got flour here. Now I'm using a whole grain flour, and I just like to mix Einkorn, and I've got Spelt in here. I grind my own flour, and when I'm making bread, I'll just grind up some extra and put it in the freezer so it stays fresh. And so this is just coming out of the freezer, and I actually think it helps when it's cold like this for these whole grains, because it makes you be able to work with it a little better when you're doing it for a quick bread. Now obviously you wouldn't want to do that for like a yeast bread or anything. So you can use an all-purpose white flour for this. I've heard of people using like a 1-for-1 gluten-free, but I've never tried that. You could use all-purpose Einkorn, but I have found that, like I said, it works really good with these with this whole grain. They have a lot of protein and fiber in them and nutrients, and so that's why I really like making it with that. And then you're going to need yogurt. This is a non-fat Greek yogurt here, and it is just a plain yogurt. So you can see it's just made out of milk here. Non-fat Greek yogurt. And then we've got baking powder and salt, and we're going to do the everything bagel seasoning on it. I've got an egg here. We've been getting these little smaller eggs from some of our new layers, and so we're going to whisk that up in here with a little bit of water for an egg wash, and then we'll just sprinkle it with our everything bagel seasoning. So I'm going to just get started by measuring my flour in here, and I'm going to do 1 cup of this Spelt flour, and then I'm going to do 2 cups of this Einkorn flour. And the Spelt just kind of has a more of a nutty taste to it. It's really good. You can see that it was a little bit more brown in color, and this Einkorn is a little bit more lighter in color. And then we're going to use 4 teaspoons of baking powder. So I love recipes like this because I don't have to think too much. I have usually the ingredients on hand, and I can just throw it together, or I can get my kids to make it. And I think when you're, trying to eat a lot at home to save money and be healthier, you need to have recipes that are just super simple go-to recipes like this, and it helps out so much. So we're just going to mix that in a little bit. That would be kind of similar like if you were making biscuits, kind of the same ingredients. And then we're just going to put our Greek yogurt in here. And you can also make these blueberry. I've done them with dried blueberries. I've made them with frozen blueberries, and I will put a recipe to that below. So you can, if you want to try the blueberry one, you can do that as well. We're just going to get 2 cups of flour here. And a lot of times, like these whole grain flours will act a little bit differently with the moisture content as opposed to like a white flour. So, if you're doing this with white flour and it gets too dry, or if it gets, too wet, you can always just add a little more flour, or you can just add a little bit more yogurt if you need to. But I find this recipe works pretty good. So we're just gonna mix this all in together till we get a nice dough. Then when you're learning to have to eat a whole foods diet, sometimes it can be really overwhelming. I remember being really overwhelmed, and it just feels like when you start reading ingredients labels, which I think is one of the first things you should do, is if you're trying to eat healthier, is start looking what's in your food, what's in the packages of your food, and you might be surprised. And so if you just start reading those ingredients, you might think, hey, you know what, I don't really want to put that in my body. I don't like what's in this, and you can learn to make it for yourself. You know, we are in this information age where there's just so much available to us now that we can find ways to do things and, you know, make things healthier for our families and for ourselves so that we feel good, because that's the ultimate goal, is to eat food that makes us feel good so that we can do what we need to do. You know, it's not worth it to go around feeling terrible all the time because you eat food that's not good for you. So once you kind of get all that yogurt stirred in there as much as you can, we're just going to kind of knead this just a little bit. We just kind of want that, all that yogurt to be mixed in properly, and just knead this back and forth just a little bit. It's really just kind of fun to work with. I can tell it's starting to get a little bit sticky, which is fine. You don't want to put too much flour in whole grains or they'll just be really dense, which these are going to be pretty dense. Like, you'll notice that if you use white flour, that yours are going to rise a lot more than mine do. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're just going to cut this into 8 pieces, and then we're going to form them into some bagels. I'm going to go turn my oven on because I forgot to do that. So I'm using this USA pan. It already kind of has a silicone coating. It's non-stick, so I don't usually spray this. But what we're going to do is we're just going to take these pieces, and what I like to do is kind of roll them into a ball. So they're going to be round, and then flatten them out. And then I just like to poke a little hole in the middle there, so it looks like a bagel. You can see that. Really simple. And then we're just going to stick it on our pan. And I'm going to do that with each of these. Be so great to like make up some whipped cream cheese and have that in the refrigerator that you can have with these. Like I said, they are, with these being whole grain and then having the yogurt in there, like, they're very filling, which is nice. I mean, sometimes people, you know, talk about the expense it is of the whole grains and like me grinding my own. But what I find is that, yes, it is a lot more expensive, but also like it fills my kids up so much more. You know, I know I've talked to friends that have had teenagers that will eat 3 or 4 sandwiches, which is understandable, because if you're eating, you know, if you're eating like a plain white bread, it just doesn't fill you up. But when you've got whole grains like this, it really does help. And just a note on that, if you were just to go buy whole grain flour at the store, like, that is fine, but it's not the same as this milling it yourself. It doesn't taste the same. It's a lot more dense. I don't necessarily care for the whole grain flour at the store. I just think it just doesn't have as good of a taste, and it's really kind of heavy and dense. So this is our last one here. And it's okay if they don't look really great, because they're going to kind of puff up in the oven. So I've gotten the dough washed off my hands, and I'm going to take this egg and I'm going to crack it into this bowl. I'm going to put a little water in there first, and then we're going to make our egg wash to go over the top. Just going to take that same fork, whisk it up. And I know eggs are really expensive right now if you don't have your own chickens, so you could just also just kind of brush some olive oil or something over there if you wanted to do it like that. And if you wanted these plain, you could just kind of maybe sprinkle some flaky salt on top. That would be good. Or I've seen people make them where they put cheese on top. If you were, you know, maybe you want to eat it with soup or something. We're actually having some soup tonight. We're having the crock pot cheeseburger soup tonight. So you could, you know, do like a cheesy bagel and have that with some soup. That would be really good. I I love at our Aldi that they actually have a couple different kinds of the everything bagel seasoning. They have like a jalapeno one and an Asiago one. This is just the regular one of it. And I'm gonna have to get some more, but I'm just gonna sprinkle that over top. And then we're gonna put it in the oven to bake for 25 minutes. So here's the finished bagels. You can see how nice and brown they are on top. We're just gonna let these cool off for a little bit and then we'll bag them up to eat this week. So if you enjoyed this video, I would love for you to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.